I'm very, very happy that you agreed to talk with me today about sound bowls. I saw you at the Pine Island Area Home Services, and you shared a lot about the sound bowls and your grant. And so, for those that are listening and don't know, can you tell me a little bit about who you are?
My name is Natalie Jo Baker, and I've been on a healing journey for around 15 years and kind of starting with Reiki and sound and meditation and leading up to the moment where I met you,
Yeah.
had that opportunity really through prayer, at least in my experience. I
Hmm.
mean, things happen as they do, but
Yeah.
I was really praying for an opportunity to serve with the skills that I have. And a grant fell into my lap
Oh,
and they were like, do what you want with it. And I said, okay,
okay.
okay. And then sometimes blessings come and it's like, what do I, for me as a spiritual practitioner, I'm like, I don't really need money to do the work.
Uh-huh.
And so when I received money, I thought, okay, let's invest in sound bowls because they are an investment and
Yeah.
not something that people would typically buy for themselves, right?
Right.
We're talking thousands of dollars here, and that's not really something that's accessible to the people I was serving at the time, which is rural Minnesota, including
Hmm.
Pine Island.
Hmm.
And also just with that funding, received more education on how these frequencies can support overall health, especially brain health as we age.
Yeah. My path in the holistic healing, in our culture, we are so cognitive and physical minded in the healing approach. But there's this whole spiritual, um, the cognitive piece as far as the psychological piece, but more of that holistic, and then how sound is can be healing or a detriment depending upon the hertz or the frequencies. I was first introduced, a nun came to Mayo Clinic years ago, and they used to have these spiritual grand rounds. And this was in the early 2000s. And she was talking about the study that she did where she used sound, the beat of something. And she learned that your parasympathetic system or your heart will actually start to tune into the beat. And then there's chaotic beats, and then there's harmonious beats, if you will. And I'm sure that's not the correct language. But her findings that she was sharing with the medical practitioners is how sound can be a healing instrument to us. And so when I saw you and I heard about your background, I was like, oh goodness, I really would like our Spotlight on Spirit listeners to hear more about you and how sound bowls can influence their overall wellness. And so you have quite the journey. And so thanks for sharing a little bit. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, a
With
little bit. You
Mhm.
sure? Yeah. You finish your question.
Oh, I was just curious, like, how did you get to Tibet? And
So I have not been to Tibet. I have been on the border of
oh,
Tibet,
okay.
but the teachers that have impacted my understanding of the mind, let's say, or spirituality in general, that have greatly impacted me have been from and raised in Tibet or Bhutan or in exile in
Right.
India. Um, so my journey starts with Reiki, very interested in how the somatics of spirituality work, how it feels to be alive, what it feels like to have joy, what it feels like to be happy, like really happy, like internally happy. Um, we could say we could use the word peace too, right? Like these things that are so essential for our holistic well-being. You know, optimism is used in the West as a word, but to me it really means like having an internal compass of like where am I going, not externally, but where am I going with purpose internally. So Reiki really taught me how to look inside myself in a way. So then it moves into meditation. Then I find myself on pilgrimage in Nepal, where in the Vajrayana Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhist system, there is a symphony of sound options. To the point where I thought, is this meditation too? Because I was really practicing stillness and noble silence, things like this. But the sound was a whole new world of, for me, feeling into how much space there really is. Because sound for me is like I can feel space in a new way. And trained with one of my primary teachers, Yogi Karma Gomchen. He is Tibetan and Nepalese. His father is from Tibet. His mother is from Nepal. He is now in his 80s. I was fortunate enough to travel with him in rural Nepal and watched him as a healer. And really, he gave me his blessing to do this work. So I'm taught by him. And I'm also self-taught through practice, which is really how he teaches. He says, you know, practice, that's the teacher. And so it's a combination of the technical skills plus tuning into the unknown through practice, like what happens.
It's a whole new concept, if you will, for us in the Western world, isn't it? I mean, you were talking about space. I think we don't have the language. We feel it when we're tight in a tight space, right? But we don't
Mm-hmm.
have the language, or we don't know how to experience other than maybe a chaotic sense. That's how I've always sensed it. Is there's some kind of chaos or friction inside of me, but I don't know how to audibly express it. And it sounds like you were having that experience where you're now getting a whole nother language and it included sound.
I love that you bring up language.
Uh-huh.
Um, Another one of my mentors is Jampa Dadak, Acharya Jampa Dadak, who is a trained master in Tibetan Buddhist studies. He's
Mhm.
also a librarian. Um, he grew up in the monastic system in Tibet and then later in exile. And he always says it's so hard to understand the Dharma or these Buddhist teachings, Tibetan Buddhist teachings in English, because we don't have a spiritual dialect.
Yeah.
We don't have a we don't have the nuanced language because English is a mathematical, logical language. We're not equipped verbally to describe a path to enlightenment, for example. So for me, I don't love using words. That is extremely limited to me. I'm not a philosophical thinker
Uh-huh.
or studier.
Uh-huh.
I am a practitioner. Like, I like the wordless space
Mm.
of feeling because, I mean, even if I had the words, they would still be limited.
Mm. Is that you mentioned the sound bowls that you were able to purchase through this grant. Do they come in different hertzes?
So there is a variety of hertz, and then my best reference for folks that want to look into that would be the solfeggio frequencies,
Mm.
and that's kind of a sacred scale. And there's a lot of religious orientations that tap into those frequencies. I'm really working in the context of Tibetan Buddhism, but it's not limited to that.
Okay.
Gregorian chants, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that just for example. But the frequency that I chose was the 528 hertz frequency. And I chose that frequency because there is research around
Oh.
that in terms of dementia and delaying dementia. And the demographic I was working with or asked to work with is the 55 plus population.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, dementia is, you know, we're all at risk for dementia. It's an inflammatory disease. There's a lot of inflammation
Yeah.
and compounded stress in the Western world. However, the funding is really for folks that are in the time of their life where gaining access to memories and remembering what's going on is at the front of their daily experience
Mm-hmm.
or loved ones.
Yeah.
So this particular frequency is a harmonic range that is studied on the cognitive level to actually well, one of the studies is it releases testosterone in the brain, and
Mm.
that is a biomarker for delaying the onset of dementia, for one
Wow.
example.
That's so interesting. Something as natural as a frequency.
Something as natural as a frequency. And
Yeah.
sort of the fun fact about
Uh-huh.
28 is it's the same frequency as a rainbow. And, I don't know if people can tune into that, but if there's a rainbow outside and it's really quiet, there's a buzzing.
Really?
After a storm,
Uh-huh.
and there are negative ions and these other things happening as well. But the rainbow itself actually does have a sound frequency that's coming out of it. And that's sort of, especially when I'm working with children, I bring that up because it's sort of whimsical and something fun to think about. Colors having sound.
It's almost otherworldly, like it's this mystical, on the edge, non everyday experience. For I know for me, um, and for many others, this type of conversation in itself seems unreal, but in a different cultures and in different times who have given their energies to embrace and learn about sounds and then practice them, they have a wealth of knowledge. That's just quite amazing. I think it's helpful. So that's why I was so excited to that you agreed to talk with me this morning, because um, I think it's an emerging topic, and the American Legion, as well as the military culture and people within it, are really trying to figure out how to do mental health healing or mental healing, physical healing. How do we return individuals from those traumatic experiences that the military is organic to?
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that the sound bowls are an answer, one answer, a part of maybe.
I think part of, I think something to be aware of for anyone listening that's a practitioner working with veterans. It's really important, and I just want to highlight and uplift having a uh, trauma informed lens in this work. And I want to add some notes on this and
Yeah.
just kind of give an example of what that might look like.
Okay.
Um, just for example, people could say, start by listening to your body and honor your emotions without judgment. If any memories or sensations arise, know that it's normal and that you can choose to explore them or gently guide your attention back to the present moment. And then, if at any point during a sound relaxation or sound bath you feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed, know that it's okay to pause or stop entirely. Um, before telling people, okay, close your eyes, let's go into it, on one hand, it could trigger people. And I can also offer some links to the positives and negatives of this demographic after we talk today. But I also want to highlight some of the positive feedback that I've received from veterans during the sound bath experience. And this is just kind of speculative data. This has not been like proven scientifically. This
Sure.
is just my experience as a practitioner. The sound offers a reference point of ease. And sometimes, let's say, a memory can come up, or even an external sound, like a door shutting or an ambulance going by, that on a regular experience, just on an everyday level, that sound could trigger a fight or flight. During the sound meditation, there's this simultaneous awareness of I could let my mind go there, or I could bring my mind back to the sound, and allowing people to cognitively make a choice of where they're going to direct their
Sure.
minds.
Yeah.
And I'm the most curious about that moment of choice, because without the trigger, there can't be the integration. I'd almost go as far as to say is once people have practiced this enough, or they feel like they can regulate, to add in sounds that maybe in the past have been triggering, and see if it can help integrate traumatic experiences similar to EMDR, where they have the bilateral brain stimulation with eye movement. For people that are nonverbal or prefer to experience things nonverbally, sound is an amazing ally for people that like to think visually and not externally process. So introverted people
Sure.
that maybe have some trust with communicating with others, sound can be a way to process difficult experiences while also feeling a sense of joy and safety.
Are there different sounds that can offer different experiences when you're in that?
The the set that I have is a set of 8, and I have different tones within a frequency. So I have lower, louder tones,
Mm-hmm.
and I have higher, softer tones.
Mm-hmm.
In general, those lower, deeper tones are preferred by most people, because that's really a tone of like, I am safe. I am
Grounding.
in my body. I am next to the earth. The body feels heavy, and that's also a relief. Um, and then, as in general a 45-minute session goes, I move up to those higher tones. But I start low and slow, and that's really on purpose. At minimum 10 minutes, I stay in that low and slow to get people to be like, okay, there's all of this going on, thoughts, ideas, to-do lists, and then really that just settles to the bottom of the lake, so to speak, of the body.
They would have to be willing to start this process and then get to that point where that choice that of moving forward or retreating.
Yeah, and that requires trust. And
Mm-hmm.
I, that, my recommendation
Mm-hmm.
um, for folks that are interested in this is to try videos on YouTube in the comfort of your own home first, before going into a group setting or a one-on-one setting. And actually, the research shows that a recorded session or an
Mm-hmm.
in-person session has the same impact. So it's not imperative that someone seeks treatment with an in-person practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
I would be more um, prescriptive uh, or recommending that people access this in the comfort of their own space first.
Sure. There's more trust, more safety, more control, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They can
And a lot
stop at any time.
can stop at any time. Be like, and that's okay too. If you're like, you know what, no. But I do think that it's worth exploring if people have PTSD, they have anxiety, if they've lived with chronic stress for a number of years. That stress, we have cycles of stress, and the cycle of stress has to complete itself to relieve itself. And so, sound as a form of relaxation can help that stress cycle complete and leave your body. And that's what I'm really like, that's what I'm interested in.
But you mentioned that trust has to be there. And to trust the very fact that sound can facilitate or move you towards a place that you would want to be, but don't are stuck in how to get there.
You know, that self-trust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I trust myself to be open to trying something new. I trust myself that I can change. I trust that there's a different way
Yeah.
of living my life day to day and how I feel. Those are the self-trust moments that I think are important for anyone accessing holistic health. It's not about the practitioner, it's really about the individual saying,
Yeah.
and that's I think how any healing journey starts. It's like, you know what, something here needs to change and I'm ready.
Where you're conversing with yourself
Hmm.
and getting, you're bringing the rest of you on board. Like all parts of you are saying, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yes.
Even though I'm a one person, I have these conversations with myself
Oh my gosh, all the time.
all the
I'm like,
time.
listen,
Yeah.
we're going, okay?
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
get in the car. All parts of me
Yeah.
are, we're going to go on this journey because we do have aspects of ourselves,
Yep.
you know, and that's, we're looking for the wholeness, but there are
Mm-hmm.
parts of ourselves, our inner child maybe, who's like, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to
No.
risk being hurt or
Yeah.
being in pain. Like, they don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But we also have our higher selves or our spiritual selves who are like, we deserve joy and happiness and to live our lives in a way that feels good in our bodies.
Yeah.
And those are the moments of that inner dialogue or that inner trust that's so imperative um,
Yeah.
in healing.
One of years ago, the military decided to partner with the University of Pennsylvania for resilience. They were teaching individuals how to be resilient, and one of the higher or more elevated practices that they were teaching this audience, I was there. We were like 200 us military individuals, and we went through all these different ways to be resilient. And they did include, mental practices, gratitude, connecting your spirit with your mind, and letting your body follow. The last practice that was the most difficult one, they said, was when you can take something external from an external source, receive it internally, and then determine if you are going to accept it or not. You might choose to place it back out there, or you might choose to absorb it. And that takes practice. They had everyone's attention at that point because that was a new concept, that this external stimuli, could be something that you negotiate with and determine if you're going to accept it or not accept it. And I know in my practice, bringing that into individuals' worlds, that you're not just a victim, if you will, or a receiver, but you talk with the stimuli, and you're actively participating. So you can choose to receive or not receive. And where trauma is usually that was a place of vulnerability where you didn't have that option. And so it's sometimes retraining your mind and your body how to evolve out of it or move beyond it, and how it can be something that can inform you but not be you. Does all that make sense?
Yeah. Inform you, but not be you.
Right.
I think that's what I'm talking about, that moment of
Mm-hmm.
choice when
Mm-hmm.
we practice. It's like I'm going to choose to follow this thread because it's helping me understand something. I'm going to not choose to follow this
Yeah.
sensation because it's not helpful right now. And of course, it takes practice. So if anyone is like, this is hard and it's not easy, that's why it's called a practice. It is internal and it's not as physical. It's not like making a craft
Right.
or carving something out of wood. And we can see I've been practicing, but the results are our own to have. And I think that that's also something that is not always honored in Western society. It's like our accomplishments are not always visible. But if somebody is at a point in their healing where a sound that used to be really disturbing is more of a choice, or the somatics of feeling a trauma loop in the body
Yeah.
feels different, that's an accomplishment that might not be visible to other people, but that is something that the individual gets to benefit from through this type of practice.
It becomes evident, I think, in your interactions. So people will notice a difference. They'll sense it, they'll feel it, even though they can't um, say what it is.
Hmm.
There might not be the words. You seem more at peace. I've heard from people that, have done a lot of work of finding peace within themselves. It's
Hmm.
evident in our interactions. I'm just, I'm fascinated that sound can be an ally or an enemy, or can be ambivalent or neutral um, in who we are and how we integrate into this world of ours. Frequencies. It's just um, 528 is in the middle of the rainbow. Is it the color green? I want to come back to the rainbow because it's whimsical and it's almost otherworldly.
I mean, my understanding is it is the rainbow, so it's
The
it's the
whole
spectrum of the
rainbow.
rainbow. Um,
528 and makes sound and you can hear it.
it makes sound and you can hear it.
Mm.
Um, Another pop culture reference would be um, the John Lennon song Imagine,
Yes.
is the 528 hertz frequency. People will say that song makes them cry. I do
Oh.
think the lyrics are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine all the people,
Mm-hmm.
um, living life in peace. I mean, a beautiful message.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we're at this unique time in history of the 1960s and the 1970s
Mm-hmm.
where culturally these sound bowls are being used by Western musicians, artists, spiritual seekers who are
Really?
drawn to the mystical and meditative qualities of sound bowls, and that gets reflected into this song Imagine. And that can also kind of uplift this idea of how songs or sound
Mm-hmm.
can bring out emotion, positive emotions in us.
Without us even being aware that the musician recorded it at that level at Hertz.
Right.
Oh, interesting. Isn't that amazing? It's fascinating in my mind. It's fascinating. I was all of my training has been very cognitive, and so the concept that we are more integrated into this world, like smells, sounds, visuals. We're all a part of it and they affect us. And there's ways that you can integrate yourself into it that are more healing than other ways. And that we're an active participant in it. But I don't think that we're quite well aware of our active participant capabilities. And I think that's what you are introducing through your work is another way that we can participate. If someone was wanting to get more involved, Natalie, you mentioned that YouTube is a place.
YouTube is a good place to start. I have some free videos of sessions that I've recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Folks could look up Forever Well Sound Relaxation. They could find some videos on my YouTube channel, or you can look up my name, Natalie Jo Baker. I also have videos on the Virtual Y, which is through YMCA of the North. I have a collection of 6 videos that are professionally produced. Also, look around YouTube. There's a whole library of knowledge there in terms of different types of sound experiences. My recommendation for folks, if they want to have an in-home practice, I get this question a lot, and they want to play the sound bowls for their own healing at home. My recommendation is to get 2 bowls. And why 2? If one is able to use both of their hands, eventually learning to play both of those bowls at the same time, it is so important for our brains to use our non-dominant hand. My right hand is dominant, my left hand is non-dominant, but I have taught myself to play with both hands with ease, and that really lights up our brain. That really creates new neural pathways. So as we're healing and as we're expanding our consciousness, our brain is still growing and our brain is still learning and our brain is still developing. And part of that development is using our minds and using all parts of our brain. So sound can activate the right and left hemisphere simultaneously. Also, that hands-on approach of using your hands, your right and left, to move those bowls. I would also recommend, if you don't have the bowls at home and you're listening, you could do something like a butterfly hug, which is to tap. We love the butterfly hug.
Left over right, right over left, and just tap.
And that can be a tremendous support during sound. Or putting one hand on each knee, tapping, tap it out, get those neural pathways going. Whatever age you are, the brain is still growing. That's my understanding, and I want to encourage people to know that they can continue learning new things. And sometimes it feels difficult, but it is worth it. It's fun. Make it your own,
Right.
like find out something new and get excited.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing about being alive, is continuing to learn and unlearn and growing. It's so fantastic.
With your grant, you went around to the smaller communities with the growing. And did you report any of your findings? I think it's part of a grant process.
I did. And part of my research was offering in-person and virtual delivery methods, because I really do believe that the future is hybrid for all sides. I mean, I love being at home. I'm at home right now. Why not connect virtually? And
Right.
I was excited to, once I was doing this research through the grant, to find out that the benefits are really the same if we're in person or through distance. And I figured that that might be true through my Reiki studies, through
Mm-hmm.
distance Reiki. That's
Mm-hmm.
a possibility to do distance healing, which
Yeah.
felt really abstract at the time to
Yeah.
learn about remote healing, that you could think about someone across the world and they could receive your energy. That felt very far out.
Right.
And it's true. It's also true with sound. We can have an intention to connect with people through sound, through a virtual
Mm.
platform. And of course, they can receive that love and care in a virtual setting. So that was one of my key takeaways, especially when considering rural populations that don't always have
Yeah.
roads or transportation
Yeah.
or means to access. There's a lot of barriers to health in rural areas for a variety of reasons. That is part of the social determinants of health. Um, what's around us impacts us. So really keeping in mind like how to include people
Mm.
um, was on my mind, and I learned a lot.
That's really fascinating. I know Pine Island became a healthy living community a few years ago because people want to actually age in place, I think is the word that they're, or the phrase that they're saying, where people don't want to, after the age of 55 or 65 or 75, move into a different place. They want to stay where they're at, where it's more familiar. So your work validated that they possibly could and have access to some health or wellness programs and possibly using two bowls. Is there a better place? How do you go about buying bowls?
Yes. Um, I will recommend one site. I will say I'm not
Okay,
affiliated with them and I don't make money by
sure.
mentioning their name, just
Right.
letting that be known. Um, I went through Silver Sky Imports, and they are an import export out of Nebraska, and they import from India. On their website, you can listen to all of their bowls recorded. So you can go on their website, you can listen to their bowls, and the advice I give people is just set your intention. Say, I'm looking for a bowl. I want to get connected. And this is an option for people that, of course, can't go to India or Nepal and go to a store and
Right.
play the bowls themselves, which if you have the means, go. If you are more of a person that is at home and looking online, I recommend the Silver Sky Imports, and then set your intention, listen to some bowls, and everyone's different, but I would say if you feel some kind of emotion, like I felt like I cried when I listened to the bowls that I purchased through the grant. I was like, this is it. This is the piece of the puzzle. I could feel something clicking in my heart. Of course, everyone's intuition is different. Again,
Yeah.
trust yourself, but you're going to feel something like a type of relief or a type of like happiness. And then that is a vibration that's going to support you.
Yeah. You were, setting your intention in a Christian language, that would be prayer.
Prayer.
And then
Yes.
yes, there's different languages for these practices. And when you were talking about Reiki, that you can set your intention and then someone half the world away can receive that. Yeah. In the Christian world, it would be praying for. Yeah. So,
And for Christians that are looking for a sound bowl, I mean,
mhm,
connect with Jesus, connect with Mary, connect with a saint that
yeah,
resonates with you. I really love Claire in the
yeah,
Christian tradition. Or for the Buddhists out there, connect with a deity, connect with that feeling of
yeah,
unity with God, right? That feeling of all beings may benefit. I mean, whatever language people have, connect with that
mhm,
expansiveness and then listen from there.
Yeah.
And that's really going to connect you with what's meant to be, into the people's own intuition. And when looking for a sound bowl, connect with that unity with God, or that expansiveness of the mind, and listen to the
Yeah.
sound bowls from there when choosing one that's for you.
Yeah.
Right now, I am in a national board certified health coaching program that's really centered in community care. So my focus at this time is to create collective experiences or community experiences. And right now I have a contract with Rochester Art Center. I have 4 sessions that are upcoming in April and May. I also have partnered in the past with Assisi Heights Center for Spirituality, and
With this.
yeah, offer group experiences right now. I also think that it's important, as we all are coming out of prolonged isolation, to connect with each other.
I thank you for your time, Natalie. And the links are going to be part of this podcast. And so, do you have any parting words you would like to share with us?
I want to invite everyone to trust themselves and to know what's best for themselves, because there's enough information out there with people trying to have the answer. And I just want to reflect that everybody has their own answers, and to trust that.
Thank you for that, Natalie.